Welcome to On the Level, broadcasting from the Blue Ocean Network studios here in Beijing. My name is Fergus Thompson. Now, with media stories of exploding watermelons, cadmium-laced rice, pork infiltrated with illegal growth enhancers, even fake meat, the idea of organic farming might not be the first thing to spring to mind when China and food issues come up. But perhaps precisely because of these seemingly endless food safety scandals, there is a growing interest in organically and sustainably farmed food here. Food sold directly to consumers by those who grow them through farmers' markets. Now, my guest today, Chang Tianle, is the person behind one of the biggest initiatives here. That's the Beijing Organic Farmers Market. She's also a passionate proponent of sustainable consumer-linked farming. Chang Tianle, welcome to On the Level.
Thank you.
As I said, you set up this Beijing Organic Farmers Market with other people back in 2010, I believe. Did you have a farming background? Was this something that you'd grown up with?
Well, first of all, I didn't really start this. It was a group of international artists living in Beijing who were concerned about food and agriculture. I personally don't have any farming background. Mm-hmm. I'm from Shanghai and lived in Shanghai, Beijing, New York. No, I have no knowledge of farming.
Right, so something that you came to later in life. But you did work with the American organization, the Institute of Agriculture and Trade Policy, yes, for some years. Tell me a little bit about that organization and your role there.
Okay. Yeah, it was a great NGO based in Minneapolis in the States. They work internationally and locally on sustainable food and trade issues. I was the China program officer, so they brainwashed me in Minneapolis for the summer and sent me back to Beijing to look at the China program. So we're trying to understand what's going on in China's food systems and how, as an international organization, IETP can contribute to the discussion and development in China.
Well, the brainwashing was obviously successful because you went ahead and you, as you said with others, you helped to come together and set up this Beijing Organic Farmers Market. This is farmers coming in from the countryside into Beijing to sell their produce directly. How does it work?
The idea is very simple. People are concerned about food safety, while the farmers don't know who to sell to if they grow really good food. So we set up this platform where farmers bring their produce to the city every week and to meet the consumers, and consumers can buy the food directly from who grow it.
Now, you mentioned there people are worried about food safety in China. The People's Daily did a survey recently which found that actually concerns about food and drug safety were the number 3 concerns of people in China, about a quarter saying it was their main concern. From your contact with people and the people who go to your markets, just how worried are people about the food that they buy in supermarkets or that they buy from big, large producers?
Well, I would say that most consumers come to us because they are worried about food safety. So they don't understand, when they go to the supermarket, they don't know where the food is from and how they're produced. But at the farmers market, they know where it is from, who grow it, and if they have any questions, concerns, they can ask the farmers directly. They can even go to visit the farm because these are all in Beijing. It's only an hour drive. Yeah, that's why people come to us. But one of the reasons why we set up this market is not to ease people's fear on food safety. It's more about how to build better communication between rural and urban producers and consumers. I think the urban consumers need to understand that why there are so many problems with our food. Is it because the way that the food systems is built in China? Is it because the farmers don't have the rights to sell directly to the consumers, or how the pricing is arranged?
Well, from somebody who has been working in this area and dealing with these more local farmers, what is the problem in China? Is it corruption? Is it incompetence? Is it failure to regulate? Is it failure of the media to supervise because stories are crushed? Why are people involved in the food business who presumably have families willing to sell possibly poisonous goods, or certainly goods that are not suitable for consumption to the public?
Yeah, I'm not that concerned about food safety. I think much of the media reports, they are separate issues. But agriculture sustainability in China is really a huge problem because the overuse of chemicals, especially fertilizers and pesticide, that makes soil no longer sustainable to grow food. Yeah, there are lots of challenges. One of the reasons we believe is that there is no direct link between consumers and producers. So on one hand, consumers want safe, good, clean food, and they probably want their producers to be fairly paid, but they cannot have any connection to them. Well, on the other hand, lots of farmers, they understand they understand that the conventional farming, usually depending on lots of chemicals, is not sustainable. The soil is getting worse and worse each year, and the pesticide use, they see the health problems in their own rural communities. So they don't want that style of farming. Right. But the food price in China is so low. So the only way for a farmer to have a good livelihood is to produce as much as they can. That's why they tend to use lots of chemicals. And nobody, neither the consumers nor the farmers, want that situation. But because there's no direct connection, that the consumers don't get what they want, the farmers are not growing what they want to grow. So we see that we see a growing number of farmers who want to grow more organic food. They want to reduce the usage of chemicals, but they don't know if they do that, that means they'll put more energy, more human resources, more labor into it, and the yield might go down. So if the price don't go up, then their livelihood will be a problem. So we think that if we can build a market that the two sides can meet face to face, that might be one of the solutions.
Well, there is an often mentioned sort of urban-rural divide in China between the people who live in the countryside and some who come to the cities to work and those who live in the cities. Do you feel that this sort of interaction can build trust between people? I guess it's more difficult to sort of sell somebody bad produce if you're looking them in the eye than if you do it through a supermarket.
Yeah, I do think that communication, knowledge sharing is very important. That I think as a consumer myself, I would like to understand how each product is built, what the environment is like, are the workers or farmers properly paid, who are benefiting from my consumption behavior. And what's the environment and social consequences of my consumption.
Well, this seems like a great solution. You have people dealing directly with each other. I'm buying from you, I know what you've produced, and you trust me, and you're getting a fair price for it. But is it practical? Is it feasible in a city of 20 million people? Can 8 million families go to a farmer's market? How many farmer's markets do you need? How many farmers do you need?
I don't expect that the farmers' market will be the only market, only food market in Beijing to feed the whole city. But I think we need to start from somewhere. And the more important thing is to get people to think about their consumption, their food, and their connection to producers. I think farmers' market is a very good starting point for people to think in a different way.
You mean simply raising awareness about where food comes from and what the process is like and what you're actually taking into your body?
And to make them rethink their lifestyle. Do I need a bigger car? Do I need to drive every day? Should I have a more low-carbon lifestyle? That's one of the purpose of.
So it's a more holistic idea than if people are going to a farmer's market once a week, they're liable to think more carefully about the shopping than if they're just tripping down to the convenience store and picking up something in a plastic container. You mentioned also that farmers have to sell more because prices are kept low to make a living, and presumably if a farmer is producing better goods but smaller numbers, prices are higher. Is this something that will always be relegated to the rich, reasonably well-off city dwellers? Is it going to be a niche market?
I don't think so. I think everybody deserves good food. So I don't think price is the biggest obstacle for people to buy. It's really about how people think about how to spend their money. We did a survey at the farmers market to look at where our consumers are from. They're from various backgrounds. Some are just ordinary teachers or housewives, but I don't think the income defines where farmers market customers are. It's more education. It's more about their awareness of how they want to spend their money, how they want to buy food, how they want to eat food.
The large-scale farming in China is something which is still being developed here by the government. More
Yes.
people are leaving the countryside. This is government policy that
Yes.
people should move into cities.
Certainly.
And presumably then that means there are going to be larger farms and larger corporations as a part of policy. So what about the official view on this? Because the idea is more industrial farming, cheaper, we have a lot of people to feed. You seem to be saying the opposite. Do you get some support, or do you get some sort of pushback from official
No,
sources?
I don't think it's the official stand that they want to encourage industrial farming. In the party policies, it's clear that they want farmers to have better livelihood, they encourage cooperatives, they want farming to be more sustainable. But if you look at the real regulation policy directions, it is also true that they tend to support larger farms, larger agribusiness, and the small producers find it more and more difficult to survive in the market. That's why we do this, is we want to show people and also the government that the small producers have their values. They have a big contribution to make.
Now, this sort of larger scale farming has been going on for some time. The use of fertilizers going back decades. What about the farmers themselves? Do they still have the knowledge and the skills to produce in an organic way? Do they need training, or are there some older farmers who can pass on the knowledge? Are you involved in that?
Oh, we try to. I think that's one of the biggest challenge when we talk about sustainable farming in China, because farmers are so used to chemicals. The younger generation farmers, if they still exist, that they have very few knowledge.
Few that are left.
Yeah, about composting, how to grow in a more sustainable organic way. And there are some interesting government research on how to reduce usage of chemicals, but we don't see the implementation of that or the education to ordinary farmers, because we work with about 30 farms in Beijing and more than 100 around the country. They usually don't have any access to the government training.
Now, if these farms that you are working with are producing organic products, this is a problem not just in China but all around the world. How many people certify something as organic? Is it organic? What is organic? What is green? What is farm fresh? You can go into a supermarket and you can see all sorts of different little stamps and marks. It's confusing for people who research it. For the average shopper who just drops in and wants to buy something, it's almost a lottery. How do you ensure that what your farmers are producing is naturally produced?
Well, at the farmers market, we use a system called participatory and guarantee systems. So for each farm at the farmers market, we would organize visits to them. And during the visit, we would invite other producers, other farmers who know better about farming than us, and consumers who are concerned, journalists sometimes, NGOs, or some technicians, sometimes even government officials, to go to a tour to the farm to understand what they are doing. And then they will come up with a report if this farmer is following the organic principle. More importantly, through this kind of visits, farmers can learn from each other. It's a knowledge sharing, experience sharing. That's I think is more important in this participatory guarantee system that we use at the farmers market. But more importantly is the transparency and openness of the farm. That's why being local is very important at the farmers market. So consumers don't have to fly all the way to Kunming or Guizhou to visit a farm.
Right.
It's just nearby. And if you are suspicious or you have some concerns, you can just go and check it by yourself.
But it is to a certain extent based on trust and personal knowledge rather than an outside agency coming in and saying, we certify that this is organically produced, we certify there were no fertilizers.
Yeah.
That certification process in China is quite complicated.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people don't trust it, as they don't trust a lot of official things here. So Can it be, if I go into a supermarket and I see a certified officially organic, can I trust that? Should I be dubious? Do I need to look into it more? What do you do?
If I don't have the food from farmers market, sometimes
I run out of food. Of course, you wouldn't be in a supermarket anyway.
Yeah, I rarely go to supermarket actually, because I don't need anything from there. Right. But if I have to go there, I would choose certified organic food.
But you would trust those labels, or are they?
Not necessarily, but as a friend puts it, if you don't buy organic food, you will never get organic food. Right. If you buy certified organic, the chances are you might get some real organic food.
Well, with that growing interest and awareness of the problems with food, and also interest in organic food and good food, there's always the possibility of larger corporations, organizations jumping on the bandwagon, as they say. So they say, organic is the new marketing tool. Well, let's make everything organic and green. We'll just throw this label. What about, is this happening in China?
Yes, we've seen it happening in the past 3 years. Millions of dollars are going into organic agriculture sector. People buying big farms, building big farms, and setting up e-business sites to sell directly to consumers from websites. But these big ventures, they are also, I don't think there's anything different from a big agribusiness, from a big organic agribusiness. They use the same model, they use the same principles that will exclude small producers. Because we've seen it happening. Lots of these new big business approach our farmers to see if they can buy from them. And one of the farmers said, the price they give me, I can't even produce green products to them, not to mention organic products.
What's the difference between a green product and an organic?
If China has a green label, which allows the usage of chemicals, but at a lower degree. But organic forbids use of any chemicals.
So it's a sort of a gradual process up.
Yeah.
And so these farmers are saying that these big companies will come in and they simply can't live on what they're offering to pay them, and presumably the farmer then is going to be tempted to go by the rules, and the company perhaps overlook it.
Or they are just simply exploited by the companies.
You started back in 2010, as I said. It's now sort of 4 years later. What sort of growth have you seen in both the number of farms involved and the number of people going to this market?
I think people tend to have a better understanding of what's organic from consumer side. And we also see growing number of people who are going back to farm. It could be some young middle-class urban Beijingers, we see lots of them, who become farmers. They used to have very good professions. Not
just weekend farmers, you mean giving up and going out and looking for the good life and living off the land?
Yeah, they decided that being a farmer is more interesting and they have more freedom than working in a small office cubit. I think people, there is a trend of people, that's who we would call new farmers. And also there are lots of young people who are fed up living in the city and they want to go back to their hometown or their boyfriend, girlfriend's hometown to start a farm. If they can find a good market and if they can grow good food that can sell directly to consumers, they believe that they can make a much better living than working in the city. So there's a trend.
Well, in cities like Beijing and Shanghai and other larger cities in China, there's definitely that market. If somebody goes back to a small town where a lot of people are farmers and know the business but maybe producing sort of chemical produce, is it not going to be harder to find a market and to set up that sort of model in essentially rural China?
That's a very interesting question. As I said before, everybody deserves good food. It's really about how you can find a small number of consumers who can trust you. Usually, because we only work with small farmers, so if you have 100 customers, that's enough for you to support your life. So it's really about how to find these people, no matter how small a city or town you are in. And in some more remote areas, if people want to engage in organic agriculture, they would choose to grow something that can be sent long distance.
Well, talking about sending food back and forth, most people in Chinese cities aren't originally from cities. Everybody has relatives in the countryside, in a village somewhere. I know personally that people will, at certain times of the year before the Chinese New Year, get a pig from the village, which is sent back, or vegetables, or you see people travelling in trains and planes with produce everywhere. So there must be there's obviously that realisation that good food can be produced and that people can get it from the countryside. Is that something that sort of eggs people on as well, that encourages them, that they do have this knowledge? Because most Americans wouldn't really have that relationship.
That's true. I think that's also one of the reasons why the Beijing Farmers Market is probably the most successful one.
Right.
Because people living in Beijing has less connection to the rural areas, or their hometowns are too far away. While in Shanghai or Chengdu, it's really easy to find a relative in the country and get some really good food. But it also shows that people only trust people who are close to them, relatives or friends. And at the farmers market, we try to build that new connection, that consumers and farmers are not sellers and buyers, they're friends. And we do see that relationship coming up.
Well, there is certainly, within the food industry, a crisis of trust between the general public and the food producers and the regulators. So do you also see this as a way of resolving that's a social problem, quite a serious one? Do you see this as something that could spread and resolve in some way that social problem through these sort of relationships?
Yeah, in the past 4 years, we see that happening at the farmers market. People didn't know each other, one another, when they first came. But as time goes by, the consumers buy more often from particular producer, and they become friends. And that's how trust is built. I don't think trust is built on nothing. It's built on understanding, built on experience of contacting, working with each other. And then we also see lots of people would say, at the farmers market they feel safe. We have this friendly atmosphere that everybody knows everybody, and people trust one another. That's quite rare in China, I would say.
These people who are, you call them new farmers, who are leaving their office cubicles, you say, and going out to live in the land, will they have a similar lifestyle? Because in modern China, people aspire to a lifestyle that is better than their parents. A car, a nice apartment, a holiday abroad. Are these sort of things something that you have to give up if you want that lifestyle, if you want to get out of the rat race?
Not necessarily. If we see some more farmers, they might have lost lots of money when they first started, but if they manage their farm carefully, they can make a good living out of it. And one of the farmers who delivered the food today is going to Japan tomorrow with his family.
Right.
So they don't have to give up, a better life.
Right.
But they have to...
Because this is the complaint of people who live in the countryside at the moment. The actual farmers who work for these large organisations, one, that they are looked down upon by other people in society, and two, that they live very, very much hand to mouth. But you're saying that there is a solution to this where people can do what is considered a respectable profession and make money from it.
Yes. We do. Not only these new farmers, but if you have been a farmer all your life and you turn organic and you find the market for yourself and you can sell your goods at a higher price, you make more money, and you often receive visits from people from the city, make new friends, and your social status in the village will go up. That's quite natural.
Your organisation or organisations like yours aren't going to find many friends amongst the pharmaceutical producers and the international sort of companies that make fertilisers and so on. Would they see you as a threat?
Oh, we're too small to be seen as a threat.
At the moment?
Yeah, I hope in the future they will take us more seriously. But at this stage, we just try to do what we think is right.
And one area that you mentioned about coming from far away, it's also a matter of speaking face-to-face with farmers and getting good local produce that you can trust, but also that produce doesn't move that far. Is this something that people are aware of, how much distance there is between them and what is on their plate, how far it's come from.
Yeah, if you go to a supermarket, you probably don't know. And usually supermarket will boost that this is not from China, this is from Australia, this is from the States.
Well, this is something that seems to be used in the marketing here very much, but that has to do again with the trust, that there's sort of an automatic, if sometimes misplaced trust in food that comes from anywhere except China.
Yeah.
And therefore it has to be good, and this is taken advantage of. Can people be taught to trust food that comes not only from China, but from their doorstep outside Beijing?
I think if you really know the farmer, if you have visited the farm, it's much easier to build that trust. That's the beauty of farmers market, is to facilitate that.
One problem that has been mentioned again and again recently, and this is something that farmers can do very little about, is pollution of the land and the water in China. Now, you presumably vet the farmers that do this, or they have to move somewhere else, but how is this done? Is it technically difficult to ensure that whatever care they make in producing the food, that the soil that they're growing it in is healthy?
Well, first of all, I think the first step every farmer can do is to stop adding more chemicals, more poisoning stuff into the environment, soil, water. That's why we always, as long as the farmer starts organic farming, I think they should be supported. But if you look at our farmers, because they eat what they grow, so they're very careful when they choose the land. So they will do some soil analysis, they will test the water to make sure it's not polluted.
Well, Tianle, we've been talking about this food, the produce from the market. Now, let's have a look at some of the stuff that can actually be bought at a farmer's market like yours in Beijing. Some people will get the idea, or have the idea, that organic food is going to be shriveled, little dark thing with spots all over it, carrots that bend over, funny shapes. Not what they're expecting to get from the supermarket. Is that the case?
No, not necessary. Of course, they have bugs, holes on it all the time, but the farmers will choose their best looking ones to bring to your table. Look at this. This is really beautiful, and it's they're picked up.
So these are all locally produced. This is the sort of food that's grown in Beijing. We're not going to have yams or...
Oh, you can have yam. It's seasonal. Yam is more in autumn, and now you have eggplants, tomatoes, and some beans and corn.
What are these red and yellow?
Oh, these are the chards.
Fellows here.
Yeah, because some of them tend to grow some fancy vegetables.
So there's a seasonal aspect to this. People have got used to eating strawberries at any time of the year, but this will go back more to the idea of people looking forward to a certain season and eating certain foods at that time.
Yes, seasonals is very important at the farmers market. We didn't have any cucumber or tomato eggplants for 4 or 6 months, but now it's summer, so it's this tomato season, so we eat lots of them.
Right, so it's going to be fresh, and it's going to be of the season.
Yeah, and it's all very fresh, and they are picked up when they're ripe, so they taste much better than those you can get
Whereas
at
in a supermarket, you're going to have things picked ahead of time so that they ripen on the journey.
Yes.
Well, it's beautiful food, but we'll have it taken away, and I'm sure it's going to go to good use.
Yeah, probably on your dinner table tonight.
Possibly, don't. Is there, do you think, taking all these different elements into account, a viable future for this business model and this model of consumerism in China, or is it sort of pie in the sky, a little bit airy-fairy? Do you really see this as some way that in 20 or 30 years' time, many people will be buying in this way?
I hope so. I think if more people are involved in the movement like we do, or I think we have an obligation to facilitate that change in both in consumers' mindset and also how to support producers who are growing organically. I think the movement will become bigger and bigger. We are quite confident of it. Otherwise, I would be really worried about China's future, especially in terms of environment and food.
Let's hope you don't have to worry about China's future and that confidence is borne out. Chang Tianle, thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.